Dr. E.N.G. Marek Gruszecki. Philosophy of Being. Krakow, 2025. My 85th anniversary. Philosophical essay Does God Exist? Krakow, the 19th of April 2025.
God and Nature, Part 1. Creation or Evolution. This is a false alternative, because it has long been known that God rules and governs the world through the laws of nature. And this applies not only to the evolution of living nature, including the origin of man, but also to the world described by physics, both in the atomic and cosmic dimensions. The age-old dispute over the creation of the world, evolutionism or creationism, is now taking on a new form. Theistic evolutionism is a doctrine accepted by both Catholicism and most Protestants. So what is theistic evolutionism, which is Christianity's contemporary response to the controversy, evolution? Creation? The greatness of God lies in the fact that he has established eternal laws which, in a sense, take over his providence over the created world. Based on these views, the modern idea of evolution was formed, contemporary theistic evolutionism. Theistic evolutionism recognizes that God extends his general providence over processes which, from the point of view of naturalists, follow their own course. Furthermore, it is even recognized that God used chance as a main driving force behind the formation of biological novelties. In other words, God remains a creator, because it is from him that the laws he gave to matter and its ability to self-form into various contemporary and extinct forms of life originate. But he is no longer the direct creator. How does God create through evolution? Well, God acts in the world first as a primary cause that grants beings existence and uses created beings as secondary causes. Creation can have a separate and independent nature. Since creation has its own nature, it is also capable of acting in accordance with that nature with a certain degree of autonomy. God is a self-existent, eternal and unchanging being. Every created being exists only because God, who is existence itself, sustains it at all times and in all places in existence. If God ceased to sustain us in existence, we would simply disappear. We would be annihilated. When God acts as the efficient cause in creating a being, he does not set it in motion in the same way that human engineers set in motion the devices or machines they have created. God enables a created being to move on its own by its very nature. The order of creation is evolutionary precisely because God, who does not evolve himself, knows creation as evolving and grants existence to such creation. Therefore, we will always be dealing with a relationship of complete dependence of created reality on the Creator in terms of its existence. Changing creation can only change because it was created as changeable by an unchanging Creator. God and Nature, Part 2. The subject of man's relationship with nature is addressed in the Bible. Man, as a being created in the image of God, is commanded to rule over animals and subdue the earth. A superficial reading may give the impression that the biblical command allows for the exploitation of the world for selfish gain. However, a correct interpretation of the Bible suggests something quite different. Belief in the divine origin of the world requires respect for nature. When read correctly, this text encourages man to cultivate the garden of the world. St. Francis felt awe, tenderness, and love for all living nature. Many Christians believe that the issue of ecology has little to do with faith. However, this situation has begun to change. Many environmentalists have come to appreciate the religious basis for their commitment to protecting the world, while theologians point out that religion is man's connection to the order of creation. A new concept of eco-theology has been developed in theology, which reflects on the reality of the world, analyzing it as God's creative work. Actions that are destructive to the environment are interpreted as so-called ecological sins. Nowadays, a cosmocentric point of view is increasingly gaining ground. It is emphasized that the created world has value in itself, not only as a reality serving man. All reality was created for God's sake, and it is he, not man, who is the measure of all things. Therefore, nature must be respected as God's work, and man's relationship with it takes on a religious and moral dimension. The aim of the Church's reflections is to determine what a Christian's relationship with the created world should look like. Nature is therefore a unique place, the observation of which can lead to knowledge and faith in God. We have a revelation called historical, when God entered human history. However, we still have the more fundamental revelation available to every human being, the book of nature. It is worth studying and contemplating this first, most fundamental book of God's revelation. In the contemporary teaching of the Church, ecological issues are becoming increasingly important. John Paul II was the first pope to refer directly to ecology in his teaching. He considered the harmony of nature to be a revelation of God equal to that contained in the Holy Scriptures. The Pope's establishment of a day of prayer for the protection of creation is an expression of his concern for the environment. The Church's teachings include a call for ecological conversion, i.e. adopting a new lifestyle and changing the way we think and act towards the environment.
Conclusion. But Jesus, overhearing what was being said, said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not be afraid, only believe." Bible, Mark 5 verse 36. It will still be beautiful, despite everything. Just put on comfortable shoes, because you have your whole life to go through. John Paul II. Mathematics in Nature.